Censorship in the video game industry has been a notable issue for decades now. You can go back to the early 2000s, in which you have the hot coffee controversy with Grand Theft Auto, in which we saw Rockstar Games having to take some unsatisfying measures due to legal pressure and lawmakers going after the company. That set a dangerous precedent for the video game industry, and we saw a lot of the gaming industry really back away from explicit content because of that reason. And even Rockstar Games just didn't even want to touch anything close to that. Now, there's obviously been some other instances in which we saw console makers really going after certain explicit types of content within their experiences. There's been a divide between Japan and, say, American culture in terms of what's acceptable and what's not. And we've seen that on full display with some of the controversies over the recent years. There's also been Blizzard Entertainment, all about their values and how they're player first. They want people speaking out. Well, the Blitzchung controversy really exposed them for who they really were, and how a foreign government really can alter that opinion, or that mindset, supposedly. Now, there's been other instances, even just recently, Ready or Not, this is like a SWAT simulator of sort. The controversial censorship patch rolled back by Modder almost instantly. If you're unaware, this SWAT sim Ready or Not, on July 15th, the developer Void Interactive released the free update for the experience. The update added new weapons and missions and fixed a long list of bugs, but it also controversially contained changes to some in-game content. This included covering up suspects as well as toning down body dismemberment caused by gunfire and explosions. These changes were implemented as part of Ready or Not's porting process to Xbox and PlayStation. In a statement posted earlier in the month about the changes, Void Interactive stated that they had only made the changes required by the first-party platform holders, and decided to bring these tweaks to PC to better support crossplay and avoid extra bugs that could occur when maintaining different assets for each version. And despite considerable uproar from fans calling it unnecessary censoring and review bombing the game on Steam, the developers still went through with the update because, yes, they want that precious money from console. And what's even more just bizarre about this entire situation is that this is not the lone censorship issue with this entire situation. There's been a notable update in the fact that the Uncensored or Not mod that restores the original censored content has been taken down by Nexus Mods, which that platform altogether, I just do not understand the mindset, how they go about the decision making with what's acceptable and what's not. Nexus Mod has been notable for these issues over the years, and that's why there's been many individuals calling for a more suitable modding center, but so far that has not emerged. But we're really not talking about this specific instance of censorship, because this is some of the stuff that we've seen over the years, and it's definitely a problem. We've talked extensively about it here on the channel, and even this is another big one that we talked about a couple of years ago, in which Sony, again, the divide from Japan versus American culture, Devil May Cry's PS4 version was weirdly censored, but this is only something that happened in the West. There's been changes, they've kind of backed off on this a little bit, but we're actually talking about this. This is a secret enemy that really is emerging in the video game industry and just entertainment in general, which is not being talked about at all, but it has finally awoken a lot of people based on some new rules coming down from Steam, which really shows how powerless the platform is to this quiet enemy. This is coming from Automation Media, but Steam rules updated to prohibit content that violates rules set forth by payment processors and banks. Valve's rules regarding what developers shouldn't publish on Steam have a new clause regarding standards set forth by payment processors. And Valve is very much admitting right here a very scary prospect, and the fact that payment processors can usurp whatever their rules and wishes are. This story again coming from Automation Media. Valve has updated its rules regarding content that developers aren't allowed to publish on Steam. The rules and guidelines section of Steamworks documentation now has an extra clause, and it suggests that publishers are required to comply with rules and standards set forth by various third-party companies or parties involved in processing electronic payments. The rule seems to predominantly relate to adult content, and this is actually the specific rule on their Steamworks. You have many of the other stuff. Again, they don't want certain types of content, defamatory statements, certain types of content. These are just basic rules. But then you get to the new one, number 15. This is the new one. Content that may violate the rules and standards set forth by Steam's payment processors and related card networks and banks or internet network providers, in particular, certain kinds of adult-only content. Now, the problem with this is the fact that Where does this stop, and how much power do these payment processors actually have? And what we've been seeing in recent months and years is that these processors really can assert their will on developers or just entertainment companies in general. And this very much is an attack on artistic expression. You got to understand, Valve already has 14 or so and many other rules that outline what's acceptable and what's not. There's also lawmakers that have created laws that outline what's acceptable and what's not, even on platforms like this. But what we're seeing is that MasterCard, Visa, and some of these other, the banking industry is usurping those rules and making their own about what they deem acceptable. And that is a scary prospect for where this could be headed, because very much so, Steam, Valve, they do not have power here. If they lose their payment processors, it's game over. And they are just, they're not ready for that. They're not going to take this fight on because, again, if that happens, they lose everything. So in their minds, banning a couple of games, that's just what's going to have to be done here. And again, that is just a very scary prospect. Now, this website Automation Media goes on to mention the fact that things like, hate speech, malware, explicit content, depicting real people, any forms of all kinds of stuff. But this new 15th clause suggests that Steam may additionally have to crack down on specific types of adult content in response to the requirements of payment processors and banks. There are currently no specific examples of what this may entail. Now, the problem I have even with this little paragraph right here is it really doesn't put all of this into perspective, because while it is adult content for now, and a lot of you may look at some of this stuff and be like, oh, that's a stupid game, who cares about that? It's the precedent. It's also some of the experiences that have come under fire by some of these third parties that really should get you nervous with where this could be headed and how games could be altered in the future, especially designed when developers do not want to even running close to any of this type of controversy. SteamDB even outlined this. They talked about after this new rule came down, we saw a number of adult content being removed from the website. Steam has added a new rule disallowing games that violate the rules and standards set forth by payment processors and card networks or internet network providers. At the same time, many adult-themed games were removed from the store. And I think a lot of people may view stuff like this and just be like, who cares? These are experiences that probably shouldn't even be on the platform. But that really isn't the point about this whole controversy and where this could be headed. Now, SteamDB said this is possibly related to PayPal because people in certain regions have not been able to use it to pay on Steam for the past 5 days, which again, that pressure exists, and now Steam is having to give in because of this. Now, this goes much further. I think people do not understand that this has been a problem that's been brewing, especially in Japan for a while now, but it's finally reaching outside of Japan and becoming a much wider issue. So this was actually the Nier creator. He went on social media just recently, towards the end of 2024, and he was talking about this. It's a security hole that endangers democracy itself. The Nier creator speaks out against payment processors pressuring Japanese adult content platforms. Drakengard and Nier Automata creator Yoko Taro recently joined in on the discourse surrounding Western credit card payment processors and the pressure they have been exerting on Japanese adult content platforms in the past year. In a post on his personal X account, Taro commented about credit card companies refusing to process payments for legal adult content. Publishing and similar fields have always faced regulations that go beyond the law, but the fact that it is payment processors, which is involved in the entire infrastructure of content distribution, can do such things at its own discretion seems to be dangerous on a whole new level. It implies that by controlling payment processing companies, you can even censor another country's free speech, and that is what's essentially happening here. In a follow-up tweet, Taro goes on to say that I feel like it's not just a matter of censoring adult content or jeopardizing freedom of expression, but rather a security hole that endangers democracy itself. But before we continue, this video is brought to you by War Thunder, the most comprehensive vehicle combat game ever made, allowing players to control over 2,500 tanks, planes, helicopters, and ships of 10 major nations with a wide array of new and iconic options. In War Thunder, you can expect tense and engaging combat, detailed vehicles, realistic visuals, and authentic sound that immerses you as you take the helm of the most powerful machines of our time. For fans of military history and those that just love high-quality optimized PvP experiences, join a community of over 70 million players for free on PC, PlayStation, Xbox, and now mobile devices. Expansive customization options, intricate vehicle damage models, and 3 distinct modes, each catering to a specific playstyle, War Thunder awaits you on the battlefield to take part in the action. Do so by by following my link in the description or pinned comment down below to sign up and get started now. Mobile players will have their own unique link below. New and returning players that haven't played in 6 months also receive a massive bonus pack across PC and console that includes multiple premium vehicles, the exclusive Vehicle Decorator Eagle Valor, 100,000 Silver Lions, and 7 days of premium account. It's available for a limited time only, so jump in today. And again, this goes much further. There's other instances. Japan is losing an archive of out-of-print manga because of international credit card companies. This, again, was towards the end of last year. Manga Library Z, a manga archive with 14 years of history, will be shutting down this month due to credit card companies taking issue with its adult content. And you got to understand what's actually happening here. This specific situation is the perfect outline of how violent video games could be the next thing that comes under fire. So, according to the announcement, Manga Library Z has run into trouble with credit card companies, which has resulted in the platform being unable to return revenue to its contributors, the manga artists. And this is the crazy part. The problem payment processing companies had with Manga Library Z was that transactions on the site involved adult content. Back in June, Ken Akamatsu revealed that an international credit card brand requested that we suspend the distribution of works containing specific words. And the crazy thing is they gave into this, because what else are you going to have? What else are you do in this situation like this? It seems the platform complied with these demands, removing manga that contain these words, but this was ultimately not enough, and they still, that's it. You're done. And unfortunately, this is just a platform that has now been shut down because of this, because they couldn't continue without that revenue stream, and they were at the will of these credit card companies, and even then, they just didn't give a shit. Now, Visa, for what it's worth, Visa Japan CEO has commented on this controversy. This again was towards the end of last year, and they said disabling card payments for legal adult content is necessary to protect the brand. Again, you got to understand where this is headed. There's outside pressure that we're about to get into that is very much these outside parties, these activist organizations are starting to realize how they can actually create some movement, some conversation, and it's really just taking direct aim at Visa and MasterCard, who is allowing payments for whatever content. Now, it goes on to mention here, what do credit card companies in question have to say about the matter? Recently, Visa's Japanese subsidiary, Visa Worldwide Japan, held a briefing to talk about its local expansion strategies. During the Q&A session of this briefing, the company's president and representative director was asked about why Visa is becoming unusable on sites selling adult content that's illegal in Japan. In response, Kitney commented that while Visa's policy is to make legal and legitimate purchases available as much as possible, it is sometimes necessary to deny use to protect the brand. He goes on to say that these are complex decisions involving both global and local policies, and that it is important to maintain sincerity and integrity, and we will continue to do so, which suggests that the company does not intend to change its stance. There is no specific explanation provided as to what kind of global and local policies Visa's decisions are being determined by. And that's just the scary prospect about this. It's whatever their executives over there at Visa and MasterCard are deeming unacceptable. They're not looking at local laws. They're not looking at the platform rules. They're just listening to outside noise pretty much and saying we don't want to represent content like this. And that's just crazy for companies like this and the power that they now have, or they really have always had, but they're finally realizing that's in their hands. Now, I do think it is worth highlighting that we have seen some game developers commenting on this situation with Steam, and this is coming from Running with Scissors, known for the Postal series. The censorship is powered by the two major duopolistic payment networks, and as usual, the key people behind it don't even play games. Again, they just listen to outside noise. This may gradually become worse. Soon, games like the Postal series, RimWorld, and many others may have severe struggles if these precedents are put into place, just because these companies might eventually decide that they don't like their approach and force storefronts like Steam for takedowns. The future is not looking bright. And we have actually seen Valve comment on the story, and unfortunately they basically confirmed what's obvious. They do not have power with any of this. Valve responds to payment processor controversy, hopes devs have another game to put on Steam. This is the specific statement that was put out. Valve has essentially confirmed the situation. We were recently notified that certain games on Steam may violate the rules and standards set forth by our payment processors and their related card networks and banks. As a result, we are retiring those games from being sold on the Steam store because loss of payment methods would prevent customers from being able to purchase other titles and game content on Steam and would kill the platform. I mean, that's That's what would happen. We are directly notifying developers of these games and issuing app credits should they have another game they'd like to distribute on Steam in the future. And if that's not clear what these app credits are, it seems that Valve is refunding devs and hoping they'd return with a game or app that complies with the guidelines set by payment processors or network providers. So essentially, this is a nothing burger. What they're actually giving is just some of the developers a refund and say, hey, these new guidelines, you got to go along with it if you want to have a game on Steam. And the thing is, these guidelines, it's not exactly necessarily clear because these payment processors are being nitty-picky about what they deem acceptable. And again, that could change in the future, which maybe violent video games is the next step, or games that are too explicit with its type of content. This is a very scary thing that can get a lot worse for the video game industry as a whole. That's why pushback is very much necessary with a situation like this. And again, censorship, this has been going on for a while now. Steam has been directly under attack for a while. This is something that we talked about just last year. Steam is an unsafe place for teens and young adults. U.S. Senator warns Gabe Newell of more intense scrutiny from the government if Valve doesn't take action against that type of content on the platform. And this was in regards to an ADL report. Now, I'm not joking, I have a video on this in which they found that 80% of the Steam forums, they have a bunch of Pepe the Frog, and that is deemed as unacceptable and very harmful content that people can't see. And when that is your main evidence, I can't take a report like this serious. And it definitely tells me that they're pushing a narrative and they have a bias, and that is very much the Anti-Defamation League. And that's why their attack on Steam was really stupid, but unfortunately they have the ear of lawmakers. And that's why I said these outside third parties, they very much are creating a lot of noise. And up until now, they haven't exactly gotten a lot of movement, but I do feel like some of these organizations are starting to realize how to make some actual movement for what they actually want and what they're pushing for. This brings us to Collective Shout, an Australian feminist organization of sort. And yeah, they've been directly going after experiences like the ones we just talked about that got banned on Steam. And they were actually the company that was really creating the noise, the conversation that got Steam to unfortunately make that new guideline. And the reason why that even happened was because they were pressuring the payment processors. Demand payment processors stop facilitating all of these types of game sales. Send your message to these companies today. And I shit you not, this was just days ago. Open letter to payment processors profiting from these type of adult games on Steam, and they outlined all of the executives. They sent this letter, thousands, to the PayPal president and CEO, MasterCard, Visa, PaySafe Limited, Discover, Japan Credit Bureau, and yeah, the letter pretty much says your corporations are facilitating and profiting from these type of games, and it looks like their outrage, their noise got the attention of these payment processors who said, you know what, actually, I don't think that content is acceptable. We're not going to accept payments from that. Steam, you have to make a rule. You have to do something about that, or we're going to have to take Visa and MasterCard. Those options are no longer available. And of course, Steam has to give in to those wishes. This is just extremely dangerous and extremely worrying. And we did see the co-founder of this organization. They were on Twitter as well, creating noise. The campaign calling on credit card co plus payments gateways to stop facilitating sales transactions for 500 of these games. And I do think people need to understand some of these adult content, the way that they're coming out against them and describing these experiences, a lot of them, as far as I understand, or almost every single one of them, they are not illegal in terms of what their content actually is. This organization is blatantly lying and misrepresenting these experiences because they just don't want any content like that on these platforms. So they, again, when you have a letter like this and you make it out to be the worst thing possible and make it into this massive, controversial experience, that gets the attention sometimes of individuals like this. We've seen that again, like I said in the past, in the fact of Steam, with U.S. senators going after an extremism problem on the platform that just never exists. It's Pepe the fucking Frog that's on the platform. That's it for the most part. And that was their bulk of the evidence. That's why I just take considerable issue when you have individuals or companies, organizations, CEOs that just read these letters and they don't actually look into it for themselves. So this co-founder of this organization said, "We spearheaded an open letter signed by major that type of exploitation partners and directed to 6 senior executives at 7 companies, including MasterCard, Visa, and PayPal. The same execs have also received more than 1,000 emails from concerned individuals, because that is part of their network in Australia, I suppose. And yeah, they go on to attack these Coomer games, if you want to describe it as that. These games endorse men's that of women, and girls fly in the face of efforts to address violence against women, the open letter states. And for what it's worth, Collective Shout has now celebrated this decision, this new rule by Steam, saying, since we launched our campaign calling on payment processors to stop facilitating payments for these type of games on Steam, they've added a new rule to their policies, plus removed hundreds of these games. This is another, I would say this has kind of been the Trojan horse to this entire situation. It was a game called No Mercy. Again, I don't care necessarily what your view is on these adult type of games, if they should exist or if they shouldn't be on platforms like Steam. That really is irrelevant to the conversation that we're having here. But the fact that there was so much outside pressure to get this game banned, it feels like a Trojan horse to what we're seeing now and where things could be headed. Devs behind controversial game defend it, but say they're pulling it from Steam anyway. And you had this organization, Collective Shout. They were one of the loud ones, calling out, the payment processors and, Steam and all these other organizations, saying that you have to ban it. You have to get this game off the platform. Fortunately, the dev made that decision ahead of time, so Steam didn't actually have to intervene. But very much so, Collective Shout, that is not good enough. They actually want to see action like what we've seen now with the new rule. And for what it's worth, that situation with that specific game, which I guess it's centered on forcible acts with family members and stuff, again, an adult content experience, but we actually saw a UK minister slamming Steam for this explicit game promoting that type of contact and violence. And again, the developer Censored Games announced that it was removing the title from Steam, but there was massive controversy online in regards to the situation, and I just don't think a lot of people understand. Yes, that game is maybe terrible, bad, or whatever. I don't know. I just don't know what it is. But at the same time, it just feels like a Trojan horse for where things could be headed. Now look, Collective Shout, this organization, a grassroots campaigning movement against the objectification of women in media, blah, 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 they have been busy for a long time. They created noise a number of years ago about Detroit Become Human, saying stop this video game, it depicts violence against women, and again, they take issue with the robot child and the dad. If you play that experience, you know what I'm referring to. They didn't like that it was being sold in Australia, and they created a petition that got almost 40,000 signatures saying stop the video game Detroit Become Human from depicting this type of content being sold in Australia. Again, I don't like the depiction of this, and also I don't think they understand artistic expression and the importance of tackling subjects like this, but that's because they're not looking at the merits of this type of experience. They don't care about any of that. They have an inherent bias about what they actually want to accomplish, and I feel like, unfortunately, they have now found the fuel to their fire. They have now realized how they can actually get action, and that is by putting pressure on these payment processors, something that was happening towards the end of last year and now is going to continue into the future, and it just gets me extremely concerned with where this could be headed. And say what you will about Detroit Become Human, that is not the only notable example that we've seen over the years. Grand Theft Auto 5 was another experience that they went after. And some of you may not remember this, but around 2013, 2014, there were some notable organizations, notable voices going after Rockstar Games for certain aspects of the experience. Some of it was in regards to its representation of certain minorities. Some of it was in regards to its violence. We saw some organizations going after, you can shoot female characters, NPCs, and it's yeah, you can do that, but that's not a center focus of the experience. This was Collective Shout. They were celebrating in Australia that they got targeting Kmart to remove this R18 plus game from stores, and yes, they were celebrating this as a victory at the time. They also wrote more instances. Kmart pulls Grand Theft Auto 5 from sale. Following significant review of all content in GTA, Kmart has taken the decision to remove this product immediately. This is your country. Those Australians, this is an experience that they were going after. This is an organization that was putting pressure, and they accomplished it. Australia, just overall, especially in regards to their version of the ESRB and PEGI, they seem to be a lot more against certain types of content, and I have to believe it is because of organizations like this, unfortunately. Target removes Grand Theft Auto 5 from shelves. Like I said, they were very active in 2014 going against this game. Another one, over 40,000 signed petition calling on Target to withdraw GTA 5 for extreme violence against women. Grand Theft Auto 5 fueling the epidemic of violence against women, says survivors in petition signed by over 40,000 people. They have been loud, they have been active, and now they finally have the ammunition that they need to get movement for whatever they want to accomplish in the future. And that is extremely scary for where things could be headed. And that is the dangerous precedent that has now been set via these Steam rules. And these payment processors, they've been creating a lot of noise in Japan, but they finally have made it to the West, in which now conversation outrage really does need to emerge, because these payment processors, they just have way too much power, and it is unchecked at this point. They do not have to listen to the rules set by these platforms. They don't have to listen to the laws. They just have to listen to themselves and say what they feel is uncomfortable, or if they feel that they're getting too much pressure from organizations like this. And look, there's been controversy in regards to some other experiences. Like, this is a very notable one, 6 Days in Fallujah, a game that came out, didn't create much buzz, but at the time when it was re-announced, you had organizations calling on Microsoft, Sony, and Valve to ban it. You know what they can do now, these organizations, what they will do? They're going to outline all of those executives from MasterCard, Visa, PayPal, and so on and so forth, the banking industry, and say, look, this is unacceptable. How are you okay with this? You should be pulling your payment processing for this game. This financial gatekeeping is setting a dangerous precedent. And as the Nier creator also said, this is an attack on freedom of expression as well as an attack on democracy, attack on rules and laws that have already been set in stone. And sure, there should be some altered stuff and whatnot, but that's something that should not be set by a quiet individual or quiet company such as MasterCard, Visa, and really the banking industry in general. And you can look to an experience, I've had gameplay of it on the screen, of Death Stranding 2, and if you know the plot of that experience or even the first game, that is very much something that these organizations could come attacking next. And I just find that absolutely insane, because you're going to see other developers, other companies reconsider tackling very difficult subjects like this because of what could happen in the future to payment processors, where they make their money. And ultimately, that is how these companies continue on. And if that is something that is at risk, you're going to see a lot of companies steer away from, tackling very important subjects. The attack by Collective Shout on Detroit Become Human just really emphasizes with where this could be headed, and even Grand Theft Auto 5. And before we do wrap things up, I want to again thank the sponsor of the video, War Thunder. Check it out now for free on PC, console, and mobile devices, and use my link in the pinned comment or video description to get started. New players or those who haven't played for 6 months also receive a massive bonus pack across PC and console, including multiple premium vehicles, in-game currency, and more. A war on freedom of expression is very much here, and I hope people are ready for this fight. Anyway, what do you make of this entire ordeal, this entire situation? How do you think Steam should have reacted? Is there anything else you think they could have done? Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. But thank you for watching. Make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy this video, or if you found any informative value. Consider subscribing for more videos like this, and I'll see you later.